bottom of Hillside Avenue. Still see Pat now and again. In fact, she married somebody that knows Gary, that my husband knows. And then the other one was Irene Harrison. She lived at Bispham Green. Right. And she was my friend all through Croston as well. And I'd been to Bispham with her. Yeah. And we used to walk at Walking Day together. So I didn't feel all that much on my own, really.
And you'd make friends, obviously,
when you go there, don't you, really? And then I had another friend who lived on the top of Eric Hill, the right house right on the top, and she went to Croston as well. Yeah. So she had quite a trek, really, to get back home from there. But,
so it was a case of walking up, was it? To
Eric Hill, walk, to walk, yeah.
Whenever the bus
you never
stopped
thought anything about it, you just walked, you didn't think anything about it, you just did it. Yeah. And of course you weren't frightened, I mean, you just did it. Yeah. There was nothing to be frightened of.
So you've got 2 or 3 years at Croston, then you're coming up to O levels.
I never did any O levels.
No.
Never did anything like that. And I said, I never did any languages.
No.
Never did anything like that. No.
So what was your path through school then, to the day you left?
To the day I left, I didn't do any O levels or anything at Croston. I never did anything. All I did was the lessons that they told me to do, and then I just got to me 15 or whatever would it be, and I left.
So no certificates or anything like that?
No certificates and nothing. But I've not catched any harm all these years. I'm still here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got what I call this, I've got plenty of common sense. So I've not, and obviously we're learning every day, aren't we? But no, I never did any exams.
No?
Well, I never did anything as I can think of that, never passed anything anyway.
Yeah. Because nowadays everybody goes in for exams, don't they?
Today everybody does, but I mean, my children did, but I don't do it. I didn't do anything. And
so I presume there are others in the same...
Probably others. Yeah. I mean, some of them might have done. You know what I mean? Even at the same age as me, they might have done, but I never did anything. No, I never did anything at all. Yeah. But I just plodded along, and I thought, well, I'll be fine. You know what I mean? And my dad at that time worked as a hay and straw merchant. He had a wagon, and he worked delivering from farm to farm. And of course, every opportunity I went with him. Yeah. I thought, any holidays, I'm going with my dad. I don't bother about school, No, I never did anything at school. No.
Right. So when you left school...
When I left school, the thing was, where we lived, it was a problem to get anywhere. That was your problem. Not where you were going to work, but how you were going to get there and how you were going to afford to get there. Yeah. Because buses were... You know what I mean? It was just, and my mum didn't drive, So my first job when I left school was in Chorley, and I worked at Best Florist for a while. But of course, getting there and getting back was a nightmare, But so that's where I worked first of all, and then I got a job at Eccleston factory, but not actually in the factory. I got a job making parachutes.
Oh, which factory was this?
In Carrington Dewhurst, Eccleston, which was Grove Mill.
Right.
And they had a contract to make parachutes for, I think it was Vietnam War. They were for goods. They weren't for people. They were like they weren't silk. They were made out of like a pink linen, and I used to put the skirt bit round the bottom, if you will. So I did that for quite a while. I liked that.
All right.
So I did that at Eccleston. So that was a bit nearer, you see. Yeah. That wasn't so bad.
So I presume you're relying on buses and things.
So you're relying on buses and lifts and whatever. That's all you had to do. And push bike. I had a push bike as well. And then when that contract finished in the parachutes, I got in the printing room at Grove Mill as well. Yeah. Which was fine, because that was handy enough again, and I enjoyed that. That was good, and I worked on everything in the printing room, numbering, booklets and whatever, and sticking things together, and I enjoyed that. That was good. Yeah. So I worked there for a while.
So how big was
of course, I didn't need any qualifications to do that.
No, just, how did you get the job? Did you just turn up and ask for it?
Well, I think perhaps word of mouth it would have been, probably, from somebody that was already working there, and I think I perhaps got a lift from somebody who was going past my house, you know what I mean? And I seem to remember a lady picking me up and dropping me off, which was good. Right. And that's just what you did, because you couldn't do anything else. And so I worked in there for a bit in printing room. And then, what happened after that? And then another company opened up in Grove Mill called Carrington Fabrics, and I went and worked for them a bit. And I did... I used to make like fabric swatches
Right.
of the nylon material and whatever. So I worked in there a bit in the pattern room. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
Was it nylon or
It was that was nylon.
Yeah.
It was what they made like nylon work overalls. You know,
Right.
like ladies used to wear a nylon overall. It was that.
Yeah.
And that was Carrington Fabrics.
So it wasn't cotton then?
That wasn't cotton.
At
No.
all? Was there cotton in there at all?
I think
or not?
cotton would have been earlier than me. It was before my time.
Right, so
that
cotton
was
had gone.
they got to nylon then.
Yeah.
That they got to nylon and they were doing nylon.
Right. Because
At
I mean,
that time.
was it a big place?
It was a big place,
Yeah.
and they had a new mill. They did a mill where the shops are now. So they had the two mills, and it was a very busy place in its time. But I never worked actually in the mill itself,
No.
you know, and but they were very busy. But
Yeah.
it was nylon at that time.
Right. Because it's not there now. Do you remember it closing? Or?
I do remember it closing. I don't remember a lot about it, but I do remember it closing.
Yeah.
And I can't actually tell you when it closed, but I mean, they'd lose a lot of jobs. I mean, it was like every factory in every place, isn't it? It's the backbone of everybody's worked in, haven't they?
Yeah.
And all these people from all these families, and they've all worked there together, haven't they?
Yeah.
You know, mum and dad and whatever, and you know. But my mum, I never remember mum working at all.
No.
Mum never worked, no. And she was always there, you know what I mean? Never worked, sort of always there at tea time and whatever. I never had to do anything at all at home. I never did nothing. I had quite a good life, really. Never did nothing.
What did you do after the mill then?
After the mill had finished, when it got to Carrington Fabrics and I worked in there for a while, then I got pregnant.
Right.
And I was only 18. My first daughter at 18, which was a nightmare. I mean, it was like horrendous in them days. It's like today, it's a little bit different. But I mean, I'd only just stopped playing with dolls, really. I was, you know. Anyway, I got married and had my first baby, as I say, in October, and I was 19 in the December.
Right.
So I didn't work at all then.
No.
After that, and I was then still living at Anderton Mill then, and so, but it seems a long time
It does,
ago.
yeah.
It's a long time ago. She's I think 41 now or something like that.
Yeah. So did you have a problem finding a house, or was it?
Well, did, because obviously with no money, and my husband lived at home with us, with my mum and dad, and at the time when I was sort of expecting this baby, my mum was poorly. She'd started having gastric ulcers. She was poorly. Anyway, to cut a long story short, she went in to have this operation for the gastric ulcer, and she never walked again. So she ended up in a wheelchair. So I ended up at 19 with a new baby, a husband, my father at home, my older brother, and my mum in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I had to work then, so I had a sudden reality check. I had to sort of do everything for everybody, you know what I mean? And as I say, it was hard, but I did it, you know. And then, but my mum was in hospital for 9 months in Southport Promenade, and then she came out in a wheelchair and never walked again. And she was only 51.
Yeah.
And she died at 58. Never walked. They never said what had happened, but you know, it was traumatic at the time, you know. But you get on with it, you know, we get on it. We did all right. Got there.
What do you remember of the shops that you used to go to?
Well, we didn't have many shops. I don't remember any shops at all. My mum used to have. There used to be people come round from a very early age, and right up until I was, as I say, then I was sort of in my 20s when I'd had the baby and I was living at home. Still, we didn't have any. We didn't really go shopping. We had people who come to us, so we would have. Obviously, bread would come. Maybe not every day, but maybe every other day. And then we would have a grocer man from Eccleston used to come.
Do you remember who they were?
Mr. James used to come from Eccleston.
Yeah, who was the bread?
And breads were Sunblest bread.
Right.
I think it was Sunblest bread.
Was that Coulton's?
It could have been, yeah. But Mr. James used to come on a Tuesday, and he would bring my mum a few bits on a Tuesday, and she would write him an order to come on Friday with the order. And she always had a little book, one of them little A6 books, and she used to write her order in exactly the same way each week: tea, sugar, butter, marge, lard, and then anything else that come on after that. But there wouldn't be much.
No.
It would be just a few items, and he would bring them on a Friday.
Right.
And that was it. So that was Tuesday and Friday. Then we would have Maggie Dawson from Maudsley would come. She had a little van and she used to bring like bacon and other bits of stuff, maybe butter. And I can remember she used to slice the bacon in the back of the van. Nice. And I can remember her kneeling on the back of the van with these thick stockings on and brogue type shoes and slicing the bacon. And so that was Maggie used to come. And then we used to have another man who used to come and bring us fruit and veg. Right. He was called Bob Danson. No, sorry, not Bob Danson. Bob Bamford. I'm getting mixed up with my names. Bob Bamford, he used to come with potatoes and whatever. And he was a bit of a rum character. Always used to give me mum a bit of a peck on cheek when he were going, one of them. And funny enough, mum's buried in Maudsley Churchyard, St Peter's, at top of the hill there. And he's buried not far from her, about 2 foot away, the same fella. And so he used to come. And then I don't ever remember anybody coming with fish, but I'm sure they may have done. And I remember perhaps somebody coming with meat, but I can't remember who that was. And then we had a paper man used to come on a bike every day, Jimmy Kester, and he'd bring daily paper. But he always used to come after dinner, so it was like the evening post, you know, it was that late when he come with it. But they, as I say, they used to come to us. We didn't really, I don't remember really going anywhere for shopping at all, really, apart from winter time. I always remember going to Wigan and, as I say, getting a new winter coat, but we didn't really do a lot of anything else. Because there was only a bus to Wigan once a week.
Right, okay.
Once a week on a Saturday there was a bus to Wigan from Anderton Mill, and that was it. And if you missed it coming back, there wasn't any.
No. Probably get a train back to Parbury.
Maybe. I'd never been on a train for until I was well in my teens. I'd never been on a train ever, you know.
What did you think when you got on a train?
I thought it was wonderful, but I'd never been on one because we'd never had anything to do. And of course, my mum coming from town to come to live there, I mean, it was like, because she'd lived in quite a busy, in the middle of Nelson, in the town, and to come and live at Maudsley in the middle of nowhere must have been horrendous, wasn't it?
Yeah. What did she think of that then?
Well, at the beginning, I think it was difficult for her, but and she was an only one as well, with obviously no brothers and sisters, and my dad was one of, I think, 11. So there was like a lot of them, you know, and it would take a bit of adjusting to, I think, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Do you remember the farm life around the
I do, yeah. I remember lots of happy days on farm. I mean, we used to go across, as I said, for a bath to Clara Jones's farm, and I spent a lot of time over there because I was friendly with her children, and they used to. I can remember sheep dipping and haymaking with them, which was grand. And I can remember we did another farm the other way, just not far from us. That was Bob Danson, and he used to keep pigs. So I can remember going there, and I can remember that really vividly, going in that kitchen where they used to sit, and they used to sit at this wooden table, him and his wife, and it just sticks in your mind, doesn't it? Yeah. And then we had another farm further up, which was Mrs. Fletcher. Now, Mrs. Fletcher and her daughter Lillian. Now, they lived in this farmhouse. I think there must have been a Mr. Fletcher, but I don't ever remember him. I think he might have died when I was young. And they lived in this house. Well, it was the animals lived in the house with them, so that was a bit of a.
What sort of animals?
Oh, everything. Everything from the farm lived in the house, Mrs. Fletcher's house. So I used to get my mum to save bits of bread and everything so I could take it, just so I could look in this house, because it were like unbelievable. And they were never ill. There was nothing ever wrong with them. And they used to dress with all the string tied round their jackets and Wellingtons on. And they had a table, obviously, at middle of the floor with wire netting round and chickens under the table. And then they'd have it was full of mud in the house. You'd need your wellies on. And then they had they'd have a couch, one of them horsehair things, and there'd be a hole in one chair arm, and there'd be a cat with kittens in that, and maybe a chicken on the other chair arm. It was you'd never seen anything like it, but it sticks in your mind. And I can remember going there vividly, to see them, and pigs and things running about everywhere. And it would just, I used to think, Mum, have you got anything I can take just so I can go and have a look? Yeah. And then I can't remember who died first, whether it was the old woman or the daughter, but anyway, they obviously both died at finish up, but there was really characters, you know, real characters. I think she had a motorbike as well, this Mrs. Fletcher. But there were, as I say, animals everywhere in the house and manure everywhere.
Well, they weren't a family that you'd be told, oh, you don't go near them.
No, nobody ever told us not to go near them.
No.
And it was just, and I mean, they were quite well spoken, both the mother and the daughter. They were quite well spoken, and I don't know the story of how they come to be like that, but they were real characters, and probably not as old as I thought they were. You know what I mean? They always seemed to look old, didn't they? And I don't think they'd be as old as I would think they were. But I can remember going, and I always remember Dr. Hendren from Croston used to be our doctor, nice man. And he once come to my mother one day and he says, I don't mind going to the Fletchers, he says, but I need a change of clothes when I've been there, he says. But they were real characters, you know. And there was lots of characters. There isn't any characters today, is there really?
There isn't, no.
Not really. And I remember another man on the road going from Anderton Mill towards Parbold, and we used to call him Harry Parry. And he lived in a little cottage. And I mean, today you wouldn't let children go. We used to go and visit him. And you know what I mean? And he was harmless, but a character again, you know what I mean? We used to think he looked like Father Christmas. Because he had like a grey beard and whatever, but lots of characters I remember, and lots of happy days.
Just checking what we've got here. All right, now you do stuff like peg rugging. Can you tell me how you got into that?
Well, I've always been a bit sort of crafty, really. I'm not good at anything in particular, but I've always got a bit of something on the go. I can do a bit of knitting, a bit of crocheting or whatever. And it was a friend of mine who'd said that she was going to be involved with this peg rugging. And I said, well, I'll have a do. I said, I've never done any since I was a little girl, really. And so that's how we got sort of going and got doing it. So
so when was that? When did you start
that was
doing
last June we did that. And so we still got to finish. We've not quite finished the rug we were doing for the heritage thing, but we're on with that. And I've started little bits myself as well. And, you know, so as I say, I've always been a bit interested in that type of thing.
Do you remember people doing that?
I remember them doing it at home. I remember my mum doing it, and I remember us all sitting round cutting. I remember my dad cutting, because we were quite lucky, really. We had a television quite early, black and white television. I can probably remember a television from when I was probably 6 or 7.
Right,
we
so
had the television quite early. We had
a
television quite early. We were quite lucky, and we also had a telephone.
Right.
Because my dad had a business from home, we had a telephone, and I think there was only us and maybe the doctor and somebody else that had a phone then, and our number was Maudsley 5.
Yes.
And then it went to 55, and then it went to 255, but I think obviously that was for business that we had the phone, and so we did have a television. But I can remember us all sitting, and I can remember my dad doing lots of things like that. In fact, he used to make flowers out of sponge. My dad, I can remember him making tulips out of sponge. He was obviously very, good at doing things like that. He once, before I was born, when my older brother was only a baby, he made a model of the Queen Mary, to scale model, a big long thing, and obviously he just liked to do things like that. So I can remember him doing things, and I can remember him cutting this rag up for peg rugging. And they used to use a peg, you see. They would whittle a peg to make it, the point to push it through. So it was always something we did, but yet I've never done it for all these years.
No.
Until last year, but obviously it's always sticks in your mind. You do it, don't you?
Yeah.
And we always had them on floor. My mum would always do a new one every winter. For Christmas, we would always have a new one down for winter.
Right.
And we used to have a little one in each doorway. We'd have a small one in each doorway and a hearth one every winter. But we used to have a hearth rug, and my mum used to put a different one down at weekends. We used to have one for the week and one for the weekends. So we were quite posh, I would think.
Yeah.
And always a coal fire. We always had coal fire.
Did you always find that the coal would spit out onto
it used to spit out and burn things,
Yeah, so is that why you had a new one every
Probably, because it used to, you get a bit of something that would fly out, wouldn't it, and burn it,
My nan used to have something like that coal fire, you know,
Yeah.
peg rug.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
she'd pick a burning coal up
Yeah,
and just throw it back
we
on.
used-
I mean, she must have had hands like asbestos.
used to do that,
Yeah.
didn't you? But things used to fly out.
Yeah.
Didn't they? Yeah.
How did you get involved with the wharf thing?
A friend of mine who has a boat on the other marina, she said, we're doing this peg rugging, would you like to join us? And obviously my brother-in-law as well said, would you like to join us? And I said, yeah, and I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah.
It was we really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, we're sitting here in a canal boat now.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in the canal?
I got involved with the canal boats was when I met Gary, who's my second husband. When I met Gary, he was working on a trip boat that came from Burscough and used to come down this line, bringing probably children in the daytime, and then they used to do grown-up trips as well.
What was the boat called?
That was Ambush.
Right.
I think there was it may have been Ambush or Peace. I can't just remember which one it was that come down here with him. But anyway, whichever, it was one of those, which was one of the Liverpool short boats. And at that time when I met Gary, I had two little ones. My husband had left me on my own. They were only sort of 3 and 5 or something like that. And I was working at the pub across the road, which is now the rest home, which was the Firma Arms, which belonged to my brother.
Right.
And I used to work lunchtime because I used to be able to bring the children with me, and I used to make sandwiches at lunchtime. And Gary used to come on the trip boat down here, and he used to come in for a beef butty, and I used to give him an extra bit of beef on his butty, you see. So that's how I come to meet him,
Right.
and that's how I got involved with the canal boats. And then as years went on and whatever, and we got married and had another child, and then my brother decided he'd try and buy the land across from the rest home and make a marina, which he did, and only through Gary being interested in the boats and whatever. And then, as I said, my brother did this boat, it was his, and we decided that when the children grew up, and if we ever got a chance, we would like to spend more time on it, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
So that's where we are up to now.
So do you enjoy living on,
we
on
love
the boat?
it. Yeah, we love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we still have a house in Eccleston. The son's in the house, the youngest son.
Right.
So I mean, well, we don't tend to spend much time there. We spend most of the time here, you know, and feels really peculiar being in the house. You know, I was there last weekend for a couple of nights, and I'm always ready to come back.
Yeah.
You know?
So are you moored here permanently?
We're moored here.
Or,
We have a permanent mooring in here,
Yeah.
but obviously we can move off whenever we like. But we have a permanent mooring here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we enjoy it.
So do you go far when you go somewhere?
This year we've been up onto Lancaster,
Yeah.
and we've been up to Burscough for the Heritage Weekend, and that's about it really this year. But it's just lovely to be here. I mean, and it's just the wildlife and everything. It's just lovely. It's just relaxing. It's so quiet.
And do you find the communities you
They're
get
not
on?
so bad.
Yeah.
Some people keep themselves to themselves. Some people are quite quiet, but majority of them are fine. Yeah, and we get on all right. Yeah, it's good.
Because there's a boat going up and down Court. Is it the Wool boat?
Yeah, the Wool boat. They're nice people as well.
Yeah.
They're very crafty. He does photography and makes cards and things like that, and she does the knitting and I think she has people knit for her as well, and she's quite busy. And so I really only got to know her properly from when we did the Heritage Week. Yeah. And she's a nice lady.
Yeah. How important do you think this wharf development is?
Well, I think it's very important. I just hope that it can keep going, because I sometimes in the back of my mind doubt that I think that the shops will keep going, because I think the rents are very expensive.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is a shame if it doesn't, but I don't think it will myself.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if it does.
I know some people have been saying that there's not a lot going on.
No, there's not a lot going on. I mean, I was there the other Monday, and we'd been to the dentist, and it was a lovely day. And I sat in where the wharf is, and about 3 of the shops were closed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I thought, it's not good. It's not really good, that, you know. It's a shame, really, isn't it? But
closed,
like so many things, closed. They were just. I don't know if they were just closed for the day or they were just closed, but it didn't give you the atmosphere that you want. It was a lovely day. The children were on holiday. There was nothing happening. You know what I mean? And it is a shame if it doesn't keep going, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. I mean, we had a good week.
It was a good week. We had an excellent week. It was a good week, and it was we were very busy. We had over 240 children coming to put a bit in with peg rug, and they were all really interested, and they were all good, and it was really satisfying doing it, you know. And we're hoping to do something else. In fact, we're having a meeting later this week, and they're wanting to do something again. So I don't know what they'll decide upon, but we'll have to see what happens. You know.
Let's have a quick look here. I'm going to ask you now if you wouldn't mind reading a piece for me.
No, I don't.
If that's okay.
I don't mind.
It's a piece we give to everybody.
Right.
And it's just that side there.
Right.
So if you just want a quick look, just to familiarise yourself with it. It's nothing fancy, but there might be the odd line that's in dialect, but it's nothing to be scared about. But we give it to everybody so we get some sort of control, if you like, of what people say it. What people say it like. So whenever you're ready, just.
Right, I can start.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a read. Are you ready?
Yeah.
The north-west of England has many interesting dialects, although some people have no idea about all the differences. If someone from the south saw an episode of Emmerdale on the television, they might think all the actors come from Yorkshire. After all, that is where the programme comes from. But that's not the case, as at least 3 come from Lancashire. The production company looks for actors who sound northern. Maybe they think that with luck, no one will notice. Apparently Lancashire folk make good singers too, because their accent is musical. I have to say that it wouldn't take many fingers to count how many good singers I know. Accents have changed a lot over time. When I was little and sitting on a chair, doing nothing, my father would say, "Sithee," and put kettle on. And if I moaned that I hadn't grown enough, I would be told to put horsemuck in my boots. There are so many expressions that have disappeared, along with all the old houses, mills and the factories that have pulled down and turned into flats or car parks. Perhaps the television has brought some problems. We are used to listening to all sorts of accents, but really broad ones are rare. We are moving around more as well. 80 years ago, most people would stay in the same place all their lives, but now it isn't much unusual to change jobs and houses several times. Travel is cheap too. Many years ago, it took months and months of saving to pay for a holiday, but now it costs but